Thank you, council members, for allowing me to speak. My name is Daniel Rishka. I'm a pharmacist in New York State. I'm here to talk about the Buffalo medical cannabis movement. When people hear about marijuana, there's a lot of presumption. You think of Bob Marley, you think of illicit drugs, you think of arrests. A lot of bad connotations associated with that. But in reality, patients across the country are receiving benefit from cannabis. New York State has allowed the legalization of cannabis. Unfortunately, in Buffalo, they have not been allowed a registered organization to grow. So before we can understand cannabis, we have to understand where it came from. It's originally started in 12,000 BC, started out in Asia, moved down to Europe, Africa, South America, and eventually up into the United States. Back in 1851, cannabis was added to the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, which means that this has medical benefit. Here's an example of one of the medications that was allowed. This has alcohol, cannabis, chloroform, and morphine. This was given as a cough syrup. This is considered medicine. Through the years, there's been a lot of changes in prohibition, which then made this illegal. From reefer madness in 1936, the fear of cannabis moving from Mexico up into the United States, states started pulling away from the medical benefits of cannabis. In 1942, everything was pulled off of the U.S. Pharmacopoeia as medicine. Big pharmaceutical companies came into play, and it has stayed illegal since 1942. Proposition 215 in 1996 allowed California to allow cannabis, one of the first states to actually revisit cannabis as medicine. As of September 2015, there are 23 states plus the District of Columbia that have legalized cannabis. 4 states have allowed this for recreational use. So how can cannabis be legal by the state and federally illegal? This is the crux of the matter. Basically, it's voted upon. You have the right and the decision to make that can affect thousands of patients in New York State and across the country. The CARES Act is currently submitted that would allow switching the scheduling from a Schedule I to a Schedule II. This would change the game for patients across the U.S. In New York State, according to the regulation that is out there, all the medications that are now being produced will have to have these chemicals on it. All these have a medicinal value. Some are psychoactive, some are non-psychoactive. The biggest one is THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. This is the psychoactive effect. There are medical values with this part of the plant. One of the products, called Marinol, is currently FDA allowed. It is the exact chemical structure to what is in the plant. This was a cartoon that someone put out. The plant in a smokable form is considered illegal. However, if you take that exact same structure, build this in a lab, add a whole bunch of ingredients to it, this has become legal and makes Wall Street investors very, very rich. There are definitely benefits of THC from pain reduction, antiemetic, anti-tumor, appetite stimulate, and sedative hypnotic. The opposite of THC is CBD. This is what we are fighting for, as well as the other parts of the plant. CBD has cannabidiol, several medical benefits, including anticonvulsants, antiemetics, anti-inflammatory, so forth. I'm not going to go into detail, but I have this here for your reference. There are several components of the plant that have psychoactive and non-psychoactive components. For patients, you may need a conjunction of both psychoactive and non-psychoactive for medical benefit. There's three classes of cannabinoids. One is called the endogenous cannabinoids. These are the cannabinoids that exist naturally in your body. They're already there. Every person here has this circulating. Then there's the phytocannabinoids. These are your THC, your CBD, etc. These are the cannabinoids that when added to your body can bring a desired effect. Then there's synthetic. Synthetic has medical benefits. They're usually listed by letters and numbers according to how they can design it. This is not to get confused with things that are currently out there. K2, spice, and bath salts, for example. These mimic THC, but have very unpredictable effects. Across the country, there's more and more overdoses that you're seeing from these other types of product versus the natural plant. New York State regulation, they're allowing three forms: liquid oil, vaporized, and capsules. This is what we're arguing about. This is what we're fighting for. Something that is not smoked by combustible light. This is something that is made by a dispensing facility that has appropriate medical benefit for patients who need it. There's only 10 indications that New York State has allowed for use of this product. Notice that there's not PTSD, diabetes, or glaucoma as one of them. There are potential benefits. New York State has not allowed it. There's also symptoms associated with those disease states which could also be covered. We're here today to talk because out of all the registered organizations, there are 5 of them. There'll be 20 dispensing facilities throughout New York State. There is not one grower in Western New York. What happens when it snows? What happens if there's a disaster? If there's a drug shortage? I'm a hospital pharmacy director. We see it every day. Where can these patients go that have switched their medications to a plant to get this product? There needs to be more accessibility. The growers for this area aren't in Western New York. They're in New York City and Long Island. The closest grower is in Rochester that will be dispensing not to Buffalo, but to New York City. There's a lot of considerations we have to take with this product. Polypharmacy, there's only going to be 5 strains allowed. There's 10 indications that are New York State approved. How can you treat 10 indications with 5 strains? Why did I get involved with this? Because of, one, my 2 children who have violent epilepsy that could benefit from this. They're not criminals. They're children in wheelchairs. They can't walk, can't talk, in a drug-induced coma. Close friends that I've met throughout this journey, they're fighting for their children. This is a typical medication profile for my child every day. 26 medications. This is a reality every day. There's several organizations that have patients that are looking for them for direction. We need leadership. We need someone to stand up for the patients, someone in a political realm to say, we're going to not follow what everyone else is doing. We're going to do what our patients need. This is a video of my daughter. This is a short seizure. Lasted about 15 minutes. They happen hundreds of times a day. They don't stop. This is considered normal, despite 26 medications. The side effects associated with those 26 medications, this is criminal that we have to watch day after day while this occurs. And we can't do anything because we're waiting for decision by the state. Invisible boundaries shouldn't dictate patient care. Politics, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or other, shouldn't dictate how a patient should get access to medications. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Valley, and I had a short presentation too, but I guess we can't find it there. I had emailed it to you over the.
Yeah, it wasn't compatible with some of the stuff we had here.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
This is my daughter. I'm a parent and an advocate to my daughter, Maya. She is 7 years old and she struggles with a seizure disorder, which causes, her to have seizures every day. I have been actively supporting medical cannabis in New York State for over a year. My daughter's had over 1,000 seizures since Cuomo signed the bill in last July. Things just aren't moving fast enough for us. Every seizure that she endures causes her neurological, cognitive, and physical damage. Not only that, every seizure puts her life in danger. In the fall of 2014, Maya spent several days in the hospital due to prolonged, uncontrolled absence seizures. She was only able to attend school 4 days in the month of October. It's inhumane for her seizures to be ignored. Her seizures aren't safe. There's nothing about seizures that are safe. When people ask about the safety of marijuana and the long-term effects of marijuana, I know what 7 years of seizures have done to my child. I don't know how she would be any different if she had cannabis at onset. If she would be cognitively better at 7 years old, if she didn't have to have thousands of seizures, every year. My family's not unique to this situation. There are families all across Western New York that live in crisis every single day. Our life is in crisis. I actually had to take my daughter to urgent care last night because she is in constant crisis. Any little thing can turn up to be a big, giant problem quickly when you're dealing with someone who is physically disabled. Like Dan said, I have increased and changed my daughter's medications several times over the years, and she has gone through stages where she has been seizure-free, and then the seizures do come back, so we have to change the medications when they stop working. And one of her medications that she's currently on has a warning page go along with a side effect page. The side effects from the current medications that she's on causes aggression, depression, sedation. We're sedating our kids. Anti-epileptic drugs are sedating. That's what stops the seizures. It lowers the brain function altogether, where the cannabis doesn't do that. Because of your endocannabinoid system, it works within there, and it actually helps protect the brain. It's a neuroprotectant. And it also helps with the brain damage that the seizures have caused. There are so many studies that show children that have gone from nonverbal and non-ambulatory, and within 6 months to a year, they're actually regaining some of those skills that they have lost. My daughter deserves compassionate, trusted professionals to produce medicine here in New York State, and I need it to be consistent from batch to batch. When her anti-epileptic drugs, like let's say they change manufacturers, my daughter has seizures when she has to go from one manufacturer to another. So the 5 licenses that were awarded by the Department of Health, we're concerned that they're not going to have true medical grade medication. And there's not going to be enough choices for parents with children who need medication, because none of the 5 licenses specialize in pediatrics. And there's only going to be 2 dispensaries in Erie County. So everybody within the city of Buffalo will have to go outside of the city to get their medicine once the state starts issuing cards and dispensing medication. Not one dispensary will be within the city limits. And so if there's weather concerns or road closures or people who take public transportation within the city, they won't have accessibility probably to what New York State is currently implementing in Western New York. So people across Western New York, all the way from Pennsylvania to Rochester, will only have 2 dispensaries. The other issue I have is Buffalo has a large African American population, which typically is stricken with diabetes and glaucoma, which are 2 conditions that were removed from the Compassionate Care Act. And I know that we are asking you to take a look at like the original Compassionate Care Act, the legislative bill, and maybe implement a version of that that would help the population within the city. We're not looking for you to, do something brand new. Maybe look at what's currently there. And also, when cannabis is sold, it's taxed, and a lot of that tax revenue, sometimes it's taxed up to 30%, and that tax revenue goes back into the city and into education. I know in Colorado, about 10% of it goes to education. Any questions?
Are there any other speakers at this time?
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Lombardo from the University of Buffalo Center of Excellence, and just a footnote. Recently came back from a trip in Jamaica, and this has drawn the attention of the SUNY Global Health Institute, where we're actually looking at the medical conditions, doing robust clinical trials in Jamaica. Mayor Byron Brown was recently at the Center of Excellence when the Ministry of Health and the contingency from University of West Indies were in town, and we have this collaboration now where we've actually applied for grant money through NIH grants to do clinical research. In Jamaica, ongoing currently, we are in the process of doing trials, the infrastructure framework centered around diabetes and epilepsy. So just a comment that if Buffalo, we want to look at it from a clinical research standpoint, implementation research, and really kind of put Buffalo on the map as the innovative hub that are looking at these therapeutic situations, these clinical situations, and have good, robust clinical trials, and having the University of Buffalo and SUNY representing.
Okay.
My name is Henry Kay, and I am going to be reading a letter for Jeff Murray, who couldn't be here. He was busy with work. He is a volunteer with Buffalo Cannabis Movement, an active cannabis advocate for many years. Regrettably, he is unable to attend in person due to prior obligations. Please accept this letter as my testimony. Sorry. First, I would like to thank the Buffalo Common Council for allowing my voice to be heard on this important matter today. I've been working for many years to help the change in perception of cannabis. When I talk to people about cannabis reform, usually the first response is nothing short of, "Oh, you and your stoner buddies just want to get high legally." Well, this couldn't be further from the truth. The reason I am an advocate for medical cannabis is simple. When you look at the scientific proof behind it, and you watch children in states where cannabis is legal, where the parents are able to get medicine for their children's desperate need, when you find some of these children who once had 20, 50, 100 plus seizures a day go down to 20, 10, 5, or even none, and you see the kids using medical cannabis, kids who sometimes for the first time are being able to live a normal life, to be able to play with their siblings for the first time, or how about being able to hear your children laugh for the first time instead of being in a drug-induced coma? Hear them speak for the first time because of medical cannabis. It can improve the quality of life in these children and patients, not just children. How can you say no? I want you to ask yourself that right now. I want you to think, if this was your child or grandchild, mother, nephew, would you say no? Of course you wouldn't. So I ask you now not to table this Buffalo Medical Cannabis Act, but I ask you to ask more questions. I ask you to put politics aside. I ask you to put this up for further discussion among your peers. I ask you for your help in getting these children and patients their medicine. Thank you very much for your time, and I truly know how valuable it is. Jeff Murray, Buffalo Cannabis Movement volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing me today. My name is Edward Garrett. I am the chairman of the Erie County Libertarian Party, representing 500 registered libertarians in the county of Erie. And after a unanimous vote at our most recent meeting, we're here to talk about the subject of approving this Medical Cannabis Act and the Recreational Cannabis Act that was brought in June and was tabled. Our local committee is new, but is rooted in some of the oldest philosophical notions in the United States, such as autonomy or self-ownership. We believe that people have the opportunity and the right to own themselves and to make choices on their own medications, especially when those medications are recommended by their doctor as their best possible choice for alleviating the sorts of symptoms in which we've been discussing today. Many, many people across the country suffer from the sorts of illnesses that individuals such as Dan and Jeff and Lisa have been discussing today. We've talked about a couple of specific instances, but I have heard of and personally seen many hundreds of cases just like this. This is an issue that has gone ignored for a very long time due to an unearned stigma. We're asking you to support this benefit, or to support this bill for the benefit of these patients and for the benefits of the average individuals who have used cannabis recreationally only as a harmless vice, and their vice has been met with the violence of the state. People, disproportionately high numbers of poor people and people within urban communities have been beaten, arrested, and have been subjected to extortion and thrown in cages with rapists and murderers for the usage of a largely harmless plant in their own homes. This is disgraceful. You do not need me to sit here and tell you how the prison system will only make these people worse. You already know that. So I ask that we wait for individuals to actually commit a crime before treating them like criminals, and let free, responsible adults take responsibility for themselves. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi, my name is Wendy Hart. I'm from Hamburg. I'm a paralegal, freelance paralegal. I work for myself, work for lawyers for 20 years, but I guess I'm kind of here to represent the other side of the healthcare patient, since I've been in pain and had lots of problems for most of my life. Starting with abdominal pain and endometriosis 20 years ago, proceeded to IBS/Crohn's/IBD. It was never confirmed 100% with a biopsy, so I just kind of gave up on the gastrointestinal route of treatment 10 years ago. Depression, anxiety. Then 5 years ago I had lymphoma, which took 6 months to diagnose. First popped up with strange, I also have brain fog. That's one of the neurological conditions after my treatment with chemo. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had 6 months of chemo, which was, thankfully, was successful. I was fine after 6 months. So I decided to take a couple months off after working 2 part-time jobs as a freelance paralegal and notary and miscellaneous other things. I was working part-time from my home during the chemo. It sucked, but I got through it, and then I decided to take a couple months off just to get my house back in order. I have 2 what are 9-year-old twins now, a boy and a girl, and they are they are chaos. It's beyond belief. So I tried to take a couple months off to get my house back in order and get my finances back in order. I'm married. My husband's a teacher in West Seneca School District. He's the chairman of the science department, new this year. Taking a couple months off instead of bouncing back from chemo, which most people, well, you know, the lucky ones can bounce back from chemo and go and get healthy within 6 months or whatever and get their legs back within a year. I just went downhill. I started with constant, overwhelming fatigue. That's just like nothing you could ever. I can't even express how horrible and debilitating it. Aside from the fatigue, I had pain all over my body, which was, chemo was really bad. It was really, really bad, but this is worse. It's been worse. It's been 4 years of pain, fatigue, bowel problems. I've seen every specialist. I've seen cardiologists, rheumatologists, the nerves tested, neurologists, EKGs. Went back to gastroenterologist. Being frustrated years ago, actually was desperate enough to go back and get all those horrible tests that gastroenterologists give you. Bottom line, I'm still diagnosed with fibromyalgia. There's nothing that, there's a few things that help, but they're not without side effects. Many side effects. So here's a picture. Just instead of throwing my pills in the recycling bin for the past few years, I just kind of threw them into a corner of my room. So I don't know if you can see this, but this is probably, I would say about 150 pill bottles that have been prescribed to me the past 2 years. Another kind of a close-up one. See, there is Oxy, there's hydrocodone, there's I've been every pain pill that a pain medicine doctor, and I've had to go to specialists. My primary care physician is fabulous. She tries every possible test, everything, but she can't prescribe pain medication. She sent me to the specialist. So I've been to several different specialists. They throw every medication at me. Oxy puts me to sleep, gives me wicked headaches, more depression the following day. Every pain medication has just, it's horrible. The side effects are usually not worth it. I wasn't really prepared that coming here today, since I don't get up until noon. I never know if I'm going to be able to get out of bed and travel or anything. So I just printed a few things that here's the Facebook comment. This is what I wrote in June of 2014. This was after a specialist, my pain medicine specialist. So here, after my pain specialist appointment this morning, I was crying by the time I got to the parking lot. Not that she wouldn't give me the pain meds, but that she can't really prescribe anything I haven't tried that doesn't have one kind of side effect or another that I'm not willing to live with. She's willing to help me, but nothing she can give me helps. I've still got to go through with more pain, more fatigue than I can handle, and I was frustrated, tired, and sore. Half an hour and a wee bit of self-medication later, my mood is better, my aching legs are better, my screaming, painful back is better, my exhaustion's better, my irritable bowel and intestines have stopped their whining and screaming at me. So why the hell is it that this kind of medication is not a legal option for me? Does that make any sense? Just one single toke of the right strain with the CBDs in it, the high CBD to low THC content. One single toke is the difference many days of whether my kids see me out of bed and out of my room at all, or is equally, if not more important, whether my husband and I are going to go out and have enough fun to keep our marriage intact, or just that I can stop bitching at him for a little while at least. And again, with a toke, I'm the most awesome, witty fun, cool, loving person you ever want to meet. Without weed, I'm up and miserable, tired, and shit. Actually, I'm pretty successful. I'm lucky that I've so far been successful walking the line with testing required for pain medicine doctors, because obviously with the newish laws in New York State, I have a urinalysis every 30 days. So I'm very limited in the amount, which is like once a month, that will allow me to treat, allow me to get the pain medication from my doctor. But what option do I have? I have kids, you know. Okay, just one other thing. Another thing that I had on Facebook a while ago that I just printed up really quick this morning. Let's stop the pot hypocrisy. 3 presidents have admitted smoking weed. People in public office all throughout the Senate have admitted smoking marijuana recreational. How much of a hypocrite do you have to be to have broken American laws and used recreational marijuana, and yet say that I'm not going to support proposals for the same substance as a medicine for severely sick people? So about 22 U.S. veterans kill themselves every day because of PTSD. PTSD is a lingering and real darkness that follows brave men and women that have given up living their own lives and put them on hold to live as countless kids and spouses and mothers and fathers await their return. If and when the vets come home, most are faced with the darkness the rest of their lives that is just what most people can't even imagine. PTSD is a real thing. It's obviously a real thing. And everyone knows about it, and everybody knows that this medication can help PTSD. Obviously, it helps mood. It helps mood, and that's why it got off the ground recreationally so many years ago. So if and when the vets come home, most face that darkness the rest of their life. One ancient plant, one naturally grown weed, which is a weed, could be the difference of night and day to their future. Ironically, the plant that was freely and often smoked to get these armed forces through their horrors they faced in Vietnam and truly countless other wars. They can't now legally have in New York to get through the horrors of struggling through their nightmares of everyday life, trying to live in this city. So the horrors of struggling through nightmares while fighting for this country, they have a ripple effect through so many lives each and every day. The symptoms of PTSD, anger and irritability, are minimally of some of the symptoms. Medical marijuana addresses those symptoms by allowing your brain to focus on more healthy, normal patterns of behavior instead of spiraling worse and worse out of control into just chaos and darkness. And, So I would also ask the Buffalo Common Council to consider some support the Buffalo Marijuana Act and reconsider any and all options to get this medication to Western New York and make many, many people happy. That's all.
If I may be allowed to piggyback real quickly on the previous speaker's comments, I've personally seen a number of patients who suffered from various cancers and take antineoplastic drugs, chemotherapeutic drugs like methotrexate. These drugs, a lot of people are not familiar with the true nature of what chemotherapy really entails. What this is intravenous poison. Antineoplastic means it kills new tissue. That's what that word means broken down to its roots. And that's exactly what it does. It kills everything it comes into contact with and causes awful, awful side effects. My own mother, who I cared for until she died in my own home, suffered from these sorts of debilitating side effects from antineoplastic drugs. And patients who suffer from cancer all over the country suffer from this every day. I personally am a nurse, and I've taken care of patients who suffered from cancer and have taken antineoplastic drugs. They cannot walk any longer, they cannot eat, and they waste away trying their best to kill their cancer before the drugs that are supposed to save their life kill them first. And this is a problem whose severity I cannot overstate. And on the secondary subject that was mentioned in terms of post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm also a veteran of the United States Air Force, and during my tenure as active duty, I have seen active duty veterans on their way out of the service suffering from post-traumatic stress. There was a person I worked with closely, who was a good friend of mine, suffered so badly from post-traumatic stress, and the stigma was so bad, he could not get treated while he was active duty. Put a gun to his own head, a loaded gun to his head, in front of an entire group of Air Force members, and had to be calmed down to lower the gun to be taken away, and was psychologically discharged from the Air Force. This is partly because we had such a stigma regarding post-traumatic stress and mental illness and its treatment, and subsequently we have a stigma surrounding the use of the sorts of drugs like cannabis drugs to treat these things. The stigma allows these sorts of tragedies to go on every day. Thank you for hearing me again. I'm sorry for interjecting.
Hello, my name is Mindy. I'm here before you today in support of the Buffalo Medical Cannabis Act. Being a realist, I know that in certain ways your hands are tied, especially when it comes to the state and federal level. So I will save my visions of sustainable reuse hemp farms, job creation, medical miracles, and all-around quality of life for another time. Today I ask that the current New York State Public Law 221 and the Fourth Amendment of the United States of America are upheld by the Buffalo Police Department. Current statistics show that 38.6% of the city is African American. Statistics also show that African Americans represent 80% of the arrests made for possession of marijuana. These numbers are indicative that there is racial bias implicitly Public Law 221 in the City of Buffalo. Excuse me. I reread one of my sentences because I'm nervous. I was going to say, now, I'm no math whiz. Never get that one twisted. But those numbers have me believing, especially since I've been living in this city for over 30 years, that not all of those African Americans were carrying over the legally allowable limit. I don't believe they were all flagrantly showing it in a public space or brazenly burning. the marijuana for all the world to see. These numbers are indicative of a system that supports the new Jim Crow and the agenda to imprison minorities, to ensure public jobs, provide government subsidies, and maybe even free labor. I guarantee if you stand up and enforce the current law, make sure that it's properly observed, there will be more time to investigate real crimes and catch real criminals. You will lighten the caseloads of overworked public defenders and save space on the judges' dockets and cell blocks for actual criminals. Every person on this panel today knows marijuana is not a threat to this city. Not in comparison to the heroin epidemic that has people dropping like flies. You know what the most hurtful part of that is? That the government can do it to us. But we don't have the freedom to choose. I believe that legalizing marijuana would provide more quality to the lives of the people in this city, people who may suffer otherwise. How are we to feel if the law is only followed when it is good for the agenda? What makes one law more important? What makes someone else's agenda more important to the people of this city? Like, you know, this city is great because of the people who live here, despite the drug war, which we all know what that was. We keep on keeping on. Someday, at the end of the day, after we've worked our really crappy minimum wage job, we don't want to get drunk because guess what? We have kids. We want to hang out, have fun, be loose, let go of the pain and the burden that living in this space can bring. You know, breaking the law when police do it, I just don't understand how two wrongs can make a right. It doesn't. If you would like the people of this city to adhere to the law, may I suggest that the law keepers provide an example of what that may look like. Maybe then this city will be great in light of the law and not in spite of it. I know I'll be back, and I can't wait to see your smiling faces, because over the years I've gotten to see all of you in action, and I appreciate you. PTSD, those thoughts, they can be released. Marijuana does help. These poor guys have demons riding on their back. You can help release them when the time is right. Just remember these words. And next time you have a hangover or you're feeling really crappy, weed helps. Thank you.
Councilmember Wyatt. Another speaker? Oh, after the speaker. Mr. Mr. Robinson.
Arthur Robinson, community activist. I've seen people who have cancer, who have had chemo, who have radiation treatment, the sickness they endure. It is horrifying. The medicines never help, and they seem to end up worse. What it really irritates the hell out of me is, why does New York State need 18 months to research this? You have, since 1994, it's been researched in 20-some states. This should have been enacted and worked upon not even a month after it was done. This should already be there, and people should have it in their hands already. There should be no way we should have to wait for this, especially when there's children's lives involved. That's where the wrong is. Let's fix this and move on with this as fast as possible. Thank you.
Councilmember Wyatt.
I second what the pro temp mayor said, because it's a shame when you look at this and you hear the presenters and the frustration I'm sure they feel when your child is at risk and your child is having problems. This should be something that the city, not the city, but the state and the federal government should act on quickly, because if it was their child, they would not be standing and waiting for politics. They would make sure that their child gets what they need, because this is a danger to their child. Losing a child is something that, you know, standing by and watching it happen and you feel helpless. I can sympathize with these folks who are standing for this and looking for responsible, compassionate people, not politicians, to take a stand in favor of children, in favor of families, in favor of people who are hurting, who just want to feel better, to be able to have normal lives. So I hope that we can take a stand to support the state and federal legislation to hope that they can expedite this, so that these families can feel that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could hear from Corporation Counsel, because I know what's in front of us is a Buffalo Medical Cannabis Act. And what I asked Corporation Counsel, if this council even wanted to do this, could this council do it?
Lauren Howard, Assistant Corporation Counsel. The Law Department would actually have to do more research into what steps a municipality could take with respect to opening more dispensaries within the city, within the actual city of Buffalo. We can't circumvent state law, so more research will have to be done on that.
Because what I'm reading that's in front of us, which is the item, there are several things here that are under state law that it doesn't seem the city would be able to do. Now, let me say, although I think that most of this, the city is not able to do because of state law, and city law cannot circumvent state law. With that said, though, for the parents who are here, who really educated me a lot, not just today, but as I've been following their story and as I watched their child on this video, and it was disturbing. And I do have children, and I do have grandchildren. And I cannot imagine the pain, not only that your child goes through, I think it's children too, right? But the parents. And so what I do hope is that this council is able in some way to support what New York State has, but to ensure that it is implemented quickly and compassionately. And I do agree that having so few dispensaries in the area can be a burden. And not only for your child, but as I listen to the adult even speak about her pain and what she's gone through. Now, I'll be very honest. You know, I grew up in the 70s. I grew up and I was young, and so when you talked about marijuana, you're right, it was the demon of marijuana. So I can remember Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes came to my radio show, and I thought she was going to be against it because I'd grown up all these years not really understanding it. And she said, oh, no, I believe I'm correct. I don't want to quote her, but she was in favor of. And then Dr. James Lewis from Erie County Medical Center, who is the chaplain was on a panel at our church recently, and the question came up about medical marijuana. And he talked about the medicinal purposes and the benefit. Not one person in the congregation got up and walked out and said, my goodness, you all are teaching some devil stuff. So I have been educated on it, and I understand it. I would like to know how, if this council were interested in helping to push what is there or sending a homeroom message, because I think that could be done much quicker to help those medical patients outside of the act that has been presented to us today, because it would take a lot of research. And I don't think your child should have to wait on the research or that it would take to figure out this act that we're being asked for today. So I would be one who would be open. I'm only one council member, but I would be one who would be open to seeing how we could move what the state is doing or encourage the state to better take care of the needs, especially of our sick children. And I'm a vet, so I understand that piece also, but your child is the one. I have to be very honest. Watching you in the news, then hearing you, your child is the one that made me have to start thinking differently, and then doing the research, I do think differently. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Golombek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to second what the council president said. I don't think that there's anybody on this council that's heartless, that's ignorant, that doesn't know the advantages of the medicinal use of marijuana. As an individual from the Libertarian Party was mentioning, I went through the same situation with my dad for a year and a half, had lung cancer, and went through the chemo and the radiation, and you know, it's a heart-rending situation, and had there been something available at that time, you know, to assist him in his last 18 months or so, you know, we would have jumped at that, because he had a decent quality of life for the most part, but, you know, perhaps something else would have enhanced it every day of that last year and a half of his life. But I think, Mr. President, that you're absolutely right. I don't want to do something here that is going to actually end up being meaningless and giving people false hope. But I think that, you know, what we can do is to, you know, whether it's memorialize or push New York State to let them know that we're on board and that we're supportive of this. And as Art Robinson said, that, you know, it shouldn't be taking as long as it is for numerous reasons. The humanitarian aspect alone should have been enough for, as he said, for it to be moved within the first month a couple of years ago. So I'm on board as well, Mr. President.
Okay. Councilmember Rivera.
Chairman, I just wish more folks were here to see this, and especially our state legislators and those people that make decisions. I think the presentation, especially the pictures, are compelling. They tell stories, real stories, and I think when people see these pictures and these stories, it has a human element to it. It's not just letters on a piece of paper, it's people's lives. And certainly, I opened up my eyes and I looked as they were talking. I was Googling things with regard to the Cannabis Act and New York State Compassionate Care Act that they passed in July of 2014, simply because you were here talking to us. And it kind of opened up my mind and my eyes to think, you know, this is a serious problem. Certainly, we need to know more about this. I mean, the presentation you made is very compelling. Why it's been delayed, why it's so restrictive to certain areas of the state is a question I have. I don't understand that. Why it could be done at these dispensaries and not other parts of the city. To me, it's an injustice. It's not fair. And that is one of the questions I would have if I was a state legislator. However, I agree with Councilmember Pridgen and Golombek. I think that we should send a clear message to our state representatives that we have a problem here in Buffalo, and we're hearing about it, and it's not being dealt with, and we'd like it to be dealt with. So certainly in support of some form of medical marijuana act, certainly, and as far as anything other, that's something that's certainly, you know, I'm not too clear on. However, the Medical Marijuana Act, I'm certainly supportive of. Thank you very much.
Okay. What we will do, we will have law research what we are legally capable of doing and instituting, and when we will get back to you on that, okay? Yeah, just one last speaker, just for 2 minutes here.
Hi, my name's Anthony Bainey. I'm a volunteer with the Buffalo Cannabis Movement. I just wanted to make a statement from a veteran who also suffers from PTSD, who I actually was with on Sunday, and I witnessed him, you know, in terror of the fireworks. And, you know, cannabis is something that he has said personally helps him out. And we need to really think about this, because this city was the first city to ban fracking. That wasn't in compliance with state law. It's really not even in compliance with federal law, as the EPA just released another biased study against the dangers of fracking. So, you know, this city can be the stepping stone, just like it was a stepping stone against fracking, because we believe that profit should not be before people. We believe that humans should be treated fairly. And, you know, this is a problem that the state thinks that they can just run over us. It's the same situation with the West Seneca Children's Psych Center, and it's the same problem with our schools. You guys need to stand up and say, our citizens will not take this anymore. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Motion to table?
Motion is the table, seconded by Councilmember Golumback.
Motion to revisit item number 15.
Motion to revisit item number 15. We have someone to speak on this item, 447 Main.